Steve Carell's best movies and TV shows demonstrate that the actor has an underrated range, with a refreshing variety in the performance styles of his various comedic roles. However, to many of us, the actor will forever be Michael Scott, the manager of the Scranton branch of the fictitious Dunder Mifflin Paper Company from the American sitcom, The Office. Whimsy and an almost complete lack of self-awareness characterize the iconic character. While the workplace sitcom genre had been around for much longer, the 9 seasons of The Office created an inflection point in its history. It is easily the most popular show of its kind, with the best episodes of The Office being considered masterpieces, and it ushered in a new era of workplace comedy, which didn't shy away from exploring real-life issues with the dramatic sincerity they deserved, but still mostly created laugh-out-loud moments, often relying on awkwardness as a comedic device. Some truly genius scenes from The Office are so perfect that they became templates that every new workplace sitcom tried to recreate in its own vein. The cultural footprint of the Asian Jim prank can hardly be exaggerated, since it is still referenced by John Krasinski and Randall Park themselves, let alone us fans who keep returning to what is Jim's most meticulously planned and executed prank. While its rewatch value ensures you can revisit The Office infinite times without it losing its charm, I often look for other shows and movies that have a similar energy as the show, and a 1992 film perfectly fits the criteria. Glengarry Glen Ross follows a group of struggling salesmen. Based on David Mamet's Pulitzer Prize-winning play of the same name, 1992's Glengarry Glen Ross, written by Mamet and directed by James Foley, follows 4 employees of the fictitious Premier Properties. Jack Lemmon, giving one of his best movie performances, is Shelley Levine, once a top-tier real estate salesman, now going through a slump. Alan Arkin's George Aronow is a passive man who mostly complains about poor management. Dave Moss, played by Ed Harris, is fed up and wants revenge, while Al Pacino plays the leading salesman, Ricky Roma. The main cast is rounded out by Kevin Spacey as John Williamson, the unfeeling manager of the branch, whose cold demeanor embitters all of his employees. His lack of empathy for them makes him the movie's villain, while we root for Levine, who is struggling to pay his daughter's hospital bills with his current slump, caused by his manager's refusal to supply him with any meaningful leads. The movie opens with the characters learning that they will lose their jobs if they don't make any significant sales that night, but they won't be supplied with any new leads until they have made sales based on the older ones they already have. Tired of his toxic boss' constant abuse, Dave hatches a plan to rob the branch and steal the new leads that have just arrived. Alec Baldwin and Kevin Spacey's characters are the antithesis of Michael Scott. A movie about salesmen being encouraged to use whatever means to sell property will also obviously be loved by fans of The Wolf of Wall Street, and in that vein, there is a character who might remind you of Jordan Belfort from the movie. Mamet wrote an extra character for the film, who isn't in his original play, for Alec Baldwin. Called Blake, this man has been sent to the office by the owners of the company to impress on the employees the pressures of their job. If you love The Office as much as I do, you will be reminded during this heartless speech in which Blake condescendingly demeans everyone in the office of how protective Michael Scott was of his employees. His methods are questionable at best, but he always tries to ensure his subordinates have a good time at the office by alleviating the pressure his employees face through a host of activities. Blake, with a profanity-laden speech, makes everyone anxious and uncomfortable, even remarking that they ought to be fired. The film's message about capitalism is timeless. Michael Scott is obviously a caricature of tone-deaf bosses, but he is also an interesting study of masculinity and the boomer generation. The Office goes to great lengths to explore how he is well-intentioned but lacks both the vocabulary and the mental resources needed to be a better presence in his employees' lives. Glengarry Glen Ross, by contrast, is much more direct in its approach, ruthlessly exploring the toll of toxic corporate culture without many punchlines. Glengarry Glen Ross' dialogue-driven screenplay makes it as good as an action thriller in terms of excitement, but instead of being overwhelming, since the drama is character-driven, the relentless flow of dialogue pulls you in. In the capitalist workforce, every person is simply a part in a machine, and the film explores how being treated like expendable entities instead of people who deserve better treatment pushes everyone to the brink, including Ricky Roma, who takes offense when John ruthlessly berates Shelley. It also explores how moments of camaraderie make it possible to endure the toxicity in the workplace. The Office's dry humor is similar to Glengarry Glen Ross. Depending on who you ask, Glengarry Glen Ross may or may not be considered a comedy at all. If you have a dark sense of humor as is necessary to enjoy the more boundary-pushing bits in The Office, you might find sequences in Glengarry Glen Ross hilarious, even though there is no attempt on the film's side to elicit laughter. I would still hesitate to call the comedy unintentional because of Mamet's subtle writing, but the humor is cynical. Many perfect 90s movies are highly underrated today, and Glengarry Glen Ross deserves to be in the spotlight again, as workplace comedies and dramas are still relevant. Chuckling along to the disgruntled men arguing with their evil boss using some of the most profane language committed to the screen is a therapeutic experience, too. Every monologue in Glengarry Glen Ross would be met with a side look from The Office's Jim Halpert, and his absence almost makes it more effective because it leaves you to actively discover humor in the intense drama. Glengarry Glen Ross was snubbed by the Academy in other major categories. Between 1972's The Godfather and 2019's The Irishman, Al Pacino has delivered 9 Oscar-nominated performances in the span of nearly half a century. He finally won the Oscar for Best Actor on his 8th attempt for Scent of a Woman in 1993, but it wasn't his only nomination of the night, as he had also been nominated for the